went out the other door. All right, good morning. So we're going to go back to Hosea, and we're in chapter 4 today. But before I do share the Sunday school lesson with you, I wanted to give you a couple of commercials that if anybody's been paying attention to the news, what's happening in Europe and Venezuela, they're right now trying to force digital ID on everybody. And the guise for that is that, you have all your medical records right there on your wrist. So we can just implant the chip, and then you can wave your hand over the monitor, and it'll tell everybody all your medical things, and you don't need a doctor. Why are you rolling your eyes, Miss Carol? So, we're guising things and saying we want to do this for your protection, and it's for your stability, and it's for benefit of you. And wouldn't that be a great thing if you didn't have to carry all them plastic cards in your wallet, and you could just scan your hand and all that stuff? It's talked about in Revelations. Just to keep you up to date, those things are going to happen, whether we like it or not. It's going to be, perpetuated on us, and it's going to be some kind of like thing that we needed. And if you say, wow, that's never going to happen, just raise your hand about the mask situation a couple years ago and the 6 foot and all that stuff that we had to do, because if not, the virus knew if it was 5 feet, 8 inches, but, if you got 6 feet, you were okay. It used to crack me up in restaurants because if you were sitting down, you couldn't be next to somebody, but if you were standing up in line to pay your bill, you could be right next to somebody. So there's that commercial, and I'll keep you posted on anything else that I hear and research and find out that it's valid, but things will transpire that will lead to things that are talked about in the Bible, and as it does, it's just things that are going to happen up until the rapture of the church, and then what happens after that. So, yes, sir. Well, so that's an interesting question. So if you are a saved, born-again person and you have something in that's, a medical chip or something, you're still going to be saved and on your way to heaven. But what's happening with that is that all the people that take the mark of the beast after the rapture of the church, they will not be able to be saved. There are people that are going to be saved in the tribulation period, but once they take that mark of the beast, then they cannot be saved. So if somebody has a chip implanted for, whatever reason or medical and things, and you're a Christian now, it's just something that I would be very cautionary on. Why would you? And fall into that, because it's just a matter of, here, we're going to get everybody set up for that. And if you don't think you're getting set up for it, how many of your credit cards are tap and pay? And isn't that convenient? It is. It's very convenient. I'm not going to lie to you. Some of the stuff that come out in retail, me and Dana met when I was bagging groceries, and we still had the old cash registers that you punched in all the prices, and all the people. I hope I don't offend anybody in here, and if you are offended, we can talk after church. But the people that would stamp the cans with the price, and then they put all the skilled workers in the meat department and in the deli. So but then the rest of the people that were stamping the cans, they had to do that because then that's where you got your prices from. Wasn't it better when they had the barcode and they could just scan the stuff? You're all shaking your heads, yes. That's a progression. So it's a progression going to where it does simplify things, does make them a lot easier, it does make them, a lot better. If you show up at my deer shop, you might find a QR code that if you scan that QR code, you get all of my information. Isn't that neat? You don't have to talk to me anymore. But the thing is that's all a progression, and it's all just getting us ready and getting the population ready to where once this is mandatory, it's where we're heading anyway. So those are the things that, once again, it's talked about in the Bible that no man may buy or sell without that mark. A lot of people speculate what that mark is, and yes, I'm speculating right now, but it's just common sense. It's just common sense that where is it going to go from here and where is it going to go to, and then once you're mandated that this is the way it is, well, you either do it or you don't buy or sell. And that's in Revelation, black and white, and it's been in Revelations for quite a while. So that hasn't changed. And when you're younger, even when I was younger trying to figure it out, it was always like, well, how could you do that? How could you see something happening over in the Middle East like the whole world? And I used to envision just big screens that were up on every telephone pole when I was a kid. And nowadays, we look at each other and we're like, oh, well, that's easy because I can see what's going on wherever right now. I can talk to people wherever just by turning my phone the way. And we can talk to anybody, FaceTime and all that other kind of thing. So that's the commercial, but Hosea chapter 4. The sinful people, if we think about where we were in Hosea, and Hosea was, with his wife and Gomer, and, she was just, an adulterer, and she had children by, multiple men, and one of them was Hosea's. But, when we look at that and the correlation between Israel and the children of Israel and what was happening with Hosea and Gomer and how they got there, and we also think of what's happening even in our country today, how we are gotten to where we are, and then if you look at it and you say, okay, well, what's happening with that and where are we going? So I'm going to read chapter 4. It's only 19 verses, and we can review it after we get done reading it. So in Hosea chapter 4, starting in verse 1, it says, "Hear the word of the Lord, ye children of Israel, for the Lord hath a controversy with the inhabitants of the land, because there is no truth, nor mercy, nor knowledge of God in the land. By swearing and lying and killing and stealing and committing adultery, they break out, and blood toucheth blood. Therefore shall the land mourn, and every one that dwelleth therein shall languish, with the beasts of the field and with the fowls of heaven, yea, the fishes of the sea also shall be taken away. Yet let no man strive nor reprove another, for thy people are as they that strive with the priest. Therefore shalt thou fall in the day, and the prophet also shall fall with thee in the night, and I will destroy thy mother. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee. That thou shalt be no priest to me, seeing that thou hast forgotten the law of thy God. I will also forget thy children. As they were increased, so they sinned against me. Therefore will I change their glory into shame. They eat up the sin of my people, and they set their heart on their iniquity. And there shall be like people, like priests, and I will punish them for their ways, and reward them for their doings. For they shall eat and not have enough. They shall commit whoredom, and shall not increase, because they have left off to take heed to the Lord. Whoredom and wine and new wine take away the heart. My people ask counsel at their stocks, and their staff declareth unto them, for the spirit of whoredoms hath caused them to err, and they have gone a whoring from under their God. They sacrifice upon the tops of the mountains, and burn incense upon the hills, under oaks and poplars and elms, because the shadow thereof is good. Therefore your daughters shall commit whoredom, and your spouses shall commit adultery. I will not punish your daughters when they commit whoredom, nor your spouses when they commit adultery. For themselves are separated with whores, and they sacrifice with harlots. Therefore the people that doth not understand shall fall. Though thou, Israel, play the harlot, yet let not Judah offend, and come not ye unto Gilgal, neither go ye up to Bethaven, nor swear the Lord liveth. For Israel slideth back as a backsliding heifer. Now the Lord will feed them as a lamb in a large place. Ephraim is joined to idols, let him alone. Their drink is sour, they have committed whoredom continually. Her rulers with shame do love, give ye. The wind hath bound her up in her wings, and they shall be ashamed because of their sacrifices. So when we read all that and we say, wow, that's a lot that the Lord has to say about the children of Israel and what's going on with them in this chapter in Hosea, and comparing it to what was happening with Hosea and his family situation, the Lord starts out in verse 1 and says, there is no truth, there is no mercy, nor knowledge of God in the land. So if you say no truth nor knowledge of God, does that mean that the children of Israel forgot all about God? Did they forget what? No. That's the answer. You had a 50-50 chance on that, and you got it right. So, no, they didn't forget about God, but what did they do? What did they do with that knowledge of God? About not God bringing them out of Egypt and crossing the sea on dry ground. What did they do with that knowledge? They replaced it with other stuff. It was facts that they knew, but there's a difference between having facts, and there's a difference between having knowledge of God, that God is part of what you do. God was no longer part of what they were doing in the land of Israel. God was an afterthought. Yeah, he brought us up out of Egypt. No big deal. Crossed that water, and we walked across on dry land, and we all know that story. No big deal. the pillar of fire, Solomon, everything else that had happened up until this point that God had done for the children of Israel. And the children of Israel at this point just have no knowledge of God because they put him on the back burner, and the back burner. And as we know through looking at some of the judges, they just kept getting worse and worse and worse every single generation. If we compare that to where we are in the United States and we look at it and we think about where we were, even when I was a kid, I was an 80s kid in high school. I was a 70s kid in elementary school. And the things that we were taught how to read, how to write, how to do math problems, how to think critically, shop and metal shop and all those things. You don't find that in schools now. We just find ideas and what we want folks to think and what we want children to think and how to, kind of like indoctrinate more than we do teach. And if we have the kids that are growing up and they don't have any kind of, and this is just in the public schools. Look at where the Christian schools were years ago. Christian schools years ago, it was right down the line. If you didn't learn, you went into the principal's office and they had this wooden thing that would help you learn. And then when you got home, you got another wooden thing or a belt or something else that would help you learn. And now I never got many of them, but the ones that I did get, I remember very critically. And, Granny would always grab the switch off the apple tree, and the apple switches, they help me remember not to do stuff. But if we do that today, it's cruel, and, you don't want to do that, and you don't want to, punish anybody. But why? If we do that, and then we left to our own devices, what happens when we go down another generation into the future? Where do those children go? What would they learn? They just have that knowledge of God, but it's put in the back burner. Yeah, I remember hearing a story about God one time. Something about a flood, that he flooded the earth and the rainbows up in the sky as a promise never to flood the earth again. Or do the kids even know that anymore? So that knowledge of God is gone. That knowledge of God is just very, very minimal at best. And if we look at that with the children of Israel, this is exactly where they are. There was no truth, nor mercy, nor knowledge of God in the land. How many people were saved on the ark? 8. Estimated population of the earth during the flood, millions and billions of people that perished. 8 people were saved on the ark. It says in verse 2, by swearing and lying and killing and stealing and committing adultery, they break out, and blood toucheth blood. The blood toucheth blood is something that we touched on a couple weeks ago, where it's just going to continue from family to family, from generation to generation. Whatever the parents, whatever the folks that are teaching are doing, it's just going to continue right down that line. Because if you do, like Mike was talking about his grandfather, being the spiritual guide for him and how he got saved. And how many times does that happen where you have that generation that we skip talking about the Lord? We skip talking about anything of the Lord because we don't want to offend anybody. But if we don't, what's the alternative? Well, it's just not that important. We can talk about everything else under the sun, but when it comes to talking about the Lord, we'll put it on the back burner because it's not important. Or it's not that important. We can get to it later. Later might not come. And in verse 3, therefore shall the land mourn, and everyone that dwelleth therein shall languish, with the beasts of the field, and with the fowls of heaven, yea, the fishes of the sea also shall be taken away. Now, I looked at that part of this verse, and I was thinking, okay, so the fish are in the sea, but they're going to be taken away. They're going to be moved to a different part of the sea. They're going to be not there anymore. Do you realize how important the fish were to the nation of Israel and to that whole area? Not only did it feed them, but it was part of their economy. That's what they did for a living. They would fish. They would pull the fish out of the water. They would sell them to other people. They would use them for a whole lot of different things. And yet those fish are going to be gone. They're going to be taken away. Whether that means that you're just not there anymore, whether that means that they're just moved to another part of the sea or the ocean or the river, the Lord is going to take care of that. How many people fish here? What would you think, John, if you went to your favorite fishing spot and you just kept throwing out there and just nothing?
Not good.
Not good. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, if you go up to, I wish Justin was here, he could talk to you about the Conowingo Dam. Go over to the Conowingo Dam, you can pull in catfish by the boatload any day of the week, any night of the week, and huge, massive catfish. The invasive blue cats are just plentiful there. You don't even have to throw your rod in. It's just, they're going to bite on whatever you throw in the water. Can you imagine going up there and the fish are gone? They're gone. You don't get them anymore. That's the kind of God that we serve. That's the kind of God that we worship. So when we talk about this and the fishes of the sea are also be taken away, just an amazing miracle that God is saying that this is what I'm going to do. So when you go to that favorite fishing spot, or you go to that fishing spot to where that's part of your business, that's part of your commerce, that's part of your life, they're gone. No more fish. And then you're not going to be able to find them. In verse 4, yet let no man strive nor reprove another, for thy people are as they that strive with the priest. Therefore shalt thou fall in the day, and the prophet also shall fall with thee in the night, and I will destroy thy mother. No one is going to be safe. These verses, no one is going to be found not guilty for this. If we think about the influence that a mom has on their children and everything else, and on their children's children, and going down the line, you always look for that mom for, the dads are the hard ones, right? They're going to let you run into a tree and say, yeah, you're okay, just get up and wipe it off. But the moms are the ones that are going to be the ones that talk to the kids and tell them what's going on a lot of times. And they just say, the kids look up to their moms. They're just your mother will be destroyed. Verse 6, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, because thou hast rejected knowledge. I will also reject thee, that thou shalt be no more priest to see. Seeing that thou hast forgotten the law of thy God, I will also forget thy children. As they were increased, so they sinned against me, therefore will I change their glory into shame. They eat up the sin of my people, and they set their heart on their iniquity. And there shall be like people, like priests, and I will punish them for their ways, and reward them for their doings. For they shall eat and not have enough. They shall commit whoredom, and thou shalt not increase, because they have left off to take heed to the Lord. Whoredom and wine and new wine take away the heart. They have forgotten about God. Nothing that they have done is spiritual. Nothing that they have done is for the Lord. And they have forgotten the law of thy God. Now this is one to where if they have not been taught the law of God, and they have not been taught the things of Christ as they've been brought up, then why would they remember it? If they haven't been taught it at all, they don't know. But God is saying He's not going to hold them blameless. He's not going to hold them and say, okay, well, we're just going to let it go. He's not going to be there for the nation of Israel. They are not going to be the people that God was protecting back in Solomon's day, and back in David's day, and back in the early New Testament days. He is not going to be it. So when they go and they want to do anything, He's going to be, you've committed whoredom. And when we talked about that a couple weeks ago, what is that whoredom that they've committed? They've replaced God with something. They've replaced the knowledge of God with something else. And they have just accepted that they're just not going to retain the knowledge of God at all. We're not going to talk about it. We're just going to skip it. Verse 10, when they're going to eat and not have enough, they're going to be barely getting by. Always going to be hungry. Not enough food. How'd that work out for them in the wilderness? I mean, God sent them manna from heaven. I would like to taste that. I'll be honest with you. Manna from heaven, really? What could be better? Some people have said, oh, it was just a dry cracker with some honey on it and this and that. And I'm like, really? You think that's what God sent down to the children of Israel while they're wandering around the desert? I would disagree a little bit. I think it was something pretty good. Coming down from heaven, food from heaven, and then sending the birds right through the camp so they could get enough to eat all the time. I mean, God said He's going to take that away from them. I've tried. It's just, you're not listening. So now here, this is where the children of Israel are right this second. When we look at God and what He has instructed the children of Israel to do, I wanted to just go to Deuteronomy 17 and 8 through 13 And when we talk about, God telling the children of Israel what he wanted them to do, this is pretty specific, some instructions that he gave them. Starting in verse 8 of Deuteronomy 17, if there arise a matter too hard for thee in judgment between blood and blood, between plea and plea, and between stroke and stroke, being matters of controversy within thy gates, then shalt thou arise and get thee up into the place which the Lord thy God shall choose. And thou shalt come unto the priest, the Levites, and unto the judge that shall be in those days, and inquire, and they shall show thee the sentence of judgment. And thou shalt do according to the sentence which they of that place which the Lord shall choose shall show thee, and thou shalt observe to do according to all that they inform thee, according to the sentence of the law which they shall teach thee, and according to the judgment which they shall tell thee. Thou shalt do, thou shalt not decline from the sentence which they shall show thee, to the right hand nor to the left. And the man that will do presumptuously, and will not hearken unto the priest that standeth to minister there before the Lord thy God, or unto the judge, even that man shall die. And thou shalt put away the evil from Israel. And all the people shall hear and fear, and do no more presumptuously. When you look at those verses, and they're not going to listen to the priest, what was going to happen to them? What did it say? They'll die. I mean, that's what I read. If they're not going to listen to the priest, even in verse 12, even that man shall die. Because the priest, the person that was saying, not a priest like we would think about it in today's world, the Catholic priests and things like that, this is talking about the tribe of the Levites. This is talking about a holy man that they were going to get their information from God, from what we were supposed to be doing, from what the children of Israel were supposed to be doing. And if they didn't want to listen, then they were put to death. I mean, that's pretty serious. That's how serious God was saying that these children of Israel were by not listening. And what was happening to the priests in this time? They went from being holy men of God to it was all about the money and the power. They just subjected themselves to the whoredom that God is talking about. Because instead of coming in the Levites in the way that they should, they had no knowledge of God. They wanted to just put that on the back burner. So God said, that's fine. We're just going to take it away. We're going to, take away your children, take away your mothers. And then we'll continue in verse 12. My people ask counsel at their stocks, and their staff declareth unto them, for the spirit of whoredoms hath caused them to err. And they have gone a whoring from under their God. They sacrifice upon the tops of the mountains, and burn incense upon the hills, under oaks and poplars and elms, because the shadow thereof is good. Therefore your daughters shall commit whoredom, and your spouses shall commit adultery. I will not punish your daughters when they commit whoredom, nor your spouses when they commit adultery. For themselves are separated with whores, and they sacrifice with harlots. Therefore the people that doth not understand shall fall. Though thou, Israel, play the harlot, yet not let Judah offend, and come not ye unto Gilgal, neither go ye up to Bethaven, nor swear the Lord liveth. For Israel slideth back as a backsliding heifer. Now the Lord will feed them as a lamb in a large place. Ephraim is joined to idols, let him alone. Those couple verses there is talking about, what happens when somebody backslides. I know there's a couple people in here that have been exposed to, farming communities. And when I was reading that verse, I actually underlined it. So when Israel was compared to a backsliding heifer, a cow or a bull or, a big heifer, when you look at it, has anybody ever seen one of them when they are backsliding literally in the mud and you're trying to get them to go a different direction? Doesn't work. You can shove them, you can push them, you can try to get your footing and get them going a different direction. It does not work. They will keep sliding back until they get on solid ground. They will keep sliding sideways until they get on solid ground. Once they get on solid ground, then they're going to get their feet back underneath of them. But when I saw that comparison, I thought about that in the literal sense of seeing, that cow or that, big heifer coming back at you. And, it's a scary proposition. Because once they start backsliding, you can't stop them. Once you start backsliding as a Christian person, it's hard to stop. It's It's hard to stop from going backwards. What do you have to do? Just like that backsliding heifer that's in the mud that can't get their footing, you need to get your footing again. You need to get in God's Word. You need to have your devotion time, your prayer time, your time that you're talking to God and then God is talking to you. Because it goes both ways, right? You know, we've told you the Charles Spurgeon quote when somebody asked him whether it's more important to read the Bible or pray. And he said, what's more important, breathing in or breathing out? You know, you can't equate it. Say, oh, well, you know, one's more important than the other. They're both important. If you're reading God's Word, God's going to be talking to you through His Word. If you're praying, you're talking to God. And you should have that time. If you don't have that specific time and you're not specifically talking to the Lord, then make the time. Because there will always be other things that will steal your time. You know, we were talking at breakfast this morning. We took Dana out for a birthday breakfast. She's 39. So I get points for that one. But, you know, we were talking about that this morning. We were all, like, dead tired. Now, yesterday, Hunter was up at 6:30, something like that, in the morning. It was early. And he was up, ready to go, and I think it was early. I don't know, I can't remember. They all run together. But, you know, then this morning, because it's church, we all wanted to sleep in. And the reason I got up is Dana said, well, I want to go have breakfast because you and Hunter get that breakfast all the time, and I'm usually working. And I said, well, we'll get up. So when I woke him up, it was just like, we're tired, man. How many times that happened on a Sunday morning? Yeah. Tired. Other things to do. Other things are going to steal my time away. Other things are going to take the place of being in the house of the Lord. But if we look at that and we say that, you know, the Lord will feed them as a lamb in a large place, and when he said Ephraim is joined to idols, let him alone, he's talking to the nation of Judah and Israel right there, and he is saying Ephraim, which is the northern part of Israel, the northern part of that kingdom, he's just saying let him be. Leave him alone. Talking to Judah about the other tribe of Israel. Just leave them alone. They were one of the larger tribes in the northern part of Israel, and God is saying, just let him be. Their drink is sour. They have committed whoredom continually. Her rulers with shame do love. Give ye, the wind hath bound her up in her wings, and they shall be ashamed because of their sacrifices. You know, if you look at this and you say that, you know, how can God say that just to let them alone? Want to turn over to James, and we'll go through a couple verses in James. But I remember my parents had a little wooden plaque that was on the wall of our house, and I don't know where it is. My dad sometimes listens, so he might call me after church and tell me where it is. But it said, if you don't feel close to God, guess who moved? Does God change at all? But we can. And especially when, you know, we are in the world and we're thinking about things of the world, and, you know, we have to assimilate, right? No? Yeah, we don't. But a lot of times we do. And then we just inch over, and we inch over, and we inch over, and then before you know it, we're where the world used to be. And then we need to stay right by the biblical principles. But if we look at James chapter 1, verses 12 through 16. James chapter 1 says, blessed is the man that endureth temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Lord hath promised to them that love him. Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God, for God cannot be tempted with evil, neither he tempteth he any man. But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. And verse 15, then when lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin, and sin, when it is finished, bringeth forth death. Do not err, my beloved brethren. When you look at these few short verses in James, what is it saying about when you are tempted? God is not going to be the one tempting you. But when you are tempted, and you're tempted to do things that you shouldn't do, or you're tempted to have thoughts that you shouldn't have, it's saying you're drawn away from your own lust and enticed. Because the devil is enticing you does not mean that you have to give in to that temptation. That's the crown of life that is a reward when you get to heaven by not falling into those temptations. God is not the one tempting you. God says right here in his holy word that he is not going to tempt you. Neither tempteth he any man, verse 13. Because if God is not tempting you, then who is tempting you? Satan is, the enemy, the devil. He's going to tempt you. He's going to try you. He's going to push the limit. He's going to see what your weakness is. And if you don't think that that's true, he's got folks out there that are looking to see what your weakness is so they can exploit it and destroy your Christian testimony. Say, well, look at what somebody did. But more importantly, when you go down that road, it says, when lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin, and sin, when it is finished, bringeth forth death. You think about what's happening to the children of Israel back here in the Old Testament. The same exact thing. Their lust for power, their lust for position, their lust for money, their lust for just everything except basic idol worship, then worshiping God and just following God's plan, they just kept getting away from it. It's exactly what's talking about to us here in James. When that's finished, it bringeth forth sin. And sin, when it is finished, bringeth forth death. Literal death, and also the death of the nation of Israel. United States is in the same boat. We're heading the same way. The lust is conceiving right now. When I heard this past week about the selection, I won't even say a performer, for the upcoming Super Bowl, I just said, I'm done. Just can't do it. And I'm not a diehard football fan or anything like that. I mean, I enjoy watching the game, but I'm done. I can't support it. So why would you do that? Why would you have something like that children will be watching and try to influence them, and then what are their parents going to say? Are their parents going to say anything? Some of them no. Just be like, oh, it's part of the show, and move on. And then you have the impressionable minds that just get lost. And then where do we go from there? We don't. Because once all the children have been, brainwashed and indoctrinated and everything else, it's, we've lost. Because we can't go back. But what we can do is, like Mike's grandfather, is we can just continue to share the Word of God, continue to teach, continue to train, continue to tell the truth. What does the Bible say about the truth? Jesus is the truth. John 14:6, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. If we continue to train up the children the way they should go, we won't end up like the nation of Israel. But once again, where we're going, a lot of these things, unfortunately, they have to happen. And how are we going to stand when it does come to our door? Because I do believe that we're going to see it in my lifetime, that we're going to have to make choices. And then what's going to happen when you have to make that choice? We said one time when they say, hey, I'll pull away all of your medicine, I'll pull away all of your benefits, I'll pull away everything that you have, and then what? And then you have to make a choice. And would your choice be for the Lord, or will your choice be for you? And that's the only two choices that they are. And once again, the children of Israel, they made their decision, and we see what God did with them, and then we know what God did with them again, bringing them to their nation, but they still have a little long road to go during the tribulation time. But after the tribulation, we know what happens. So just think about this when you kind of read Hosea and you think about what's going on, in that life and what happened with the children of Israel. The only thing we can do is we can just keep spreading that message as best we can. Keep telling as many people as we can, because Jesus is coming soon. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, I thank you so much for this morning. Lord, I thank you for just the lessons that you have in the Bible for us to just know and learn from. And Lord, I pray that you would just help us every day to just witness to as many people as we can, either directly or by a track or by our testimony. And Lord, just may we just look out for that person that needs to be saved. And Lord, be with Pastor. He brings the message. And if there's one person here that needs to be saved today, just pray that today would be that day, and ask all